Hello and welcome to Knitting on the Lake. My name is Kelly and I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I am trying a different format for the videos. I went into cinematic mode and I'm not quite sure how it's going to come out, so hopefully the quality will be a little bit improved from what it has been. Hi everyone. I just wanted to apologize for the fact that I wasn't able to flip this video horizontally. I did not realize that by virtue of filming everything in cinematic mode, that when I flipped it in iPhoto or the Photos app on my iPhone, that when I imported it into iMovie, it would just flip right back to the original, no matter what I did. I'm sitting here at my computer fighting with it. It's not working, so I really don't know what to do. I always am editing my videos on my iPhone, so I haven't just never encountered this before. So if things are backwards, the text is unreadable on the yarn belly band, I apologize. My little boxwood is in the wrong place. It's always on to my right and it's going to be to my left this time, and the lamp will be on the other side and we'll just all have to deal. So sorry again, and I just would rather get a video out than to not do it at all. So thanks for your patience. And let's just get into it. The past few days have been a little bit off for me. We've had sick kids in the house. I actually have one home from school today. And so if you hear any background noise, it's probably either him or the landscapers who are outside doing spring cleaning. And I just ate a very spicy lunch, so I'm a little bit gravelly and possibly a little bit sniffly, so please excuse me if I have to clear my throat at all. Last week, if you watched the podcast, I talked about feeling stuck and like I didn't know what to work on or kind of what direction to go in, wondering if it was maybe the changing of the seasons, and I was unsure what type of project I should be spending my time working on, given our erratic weather patterns here in New England. Depending on the time of the day, if it's raining or snowing or 75 degrees and sunny, we have all of those things sometimes all in one day. So anyway, I mentioned that I did cast on a new project. I am not going to share that today, but I did want to share what I think was the reason for my feeling stuck. As you probably know if you have watched me in past weeks, I am actually not a monogamous knitter. I always have multiple projects on the needles, and I've found that really helps me with maintaining my joy with knitting, as well as making me feel productive and letting me kind of match my knit to my mood or to the situation. So I try to have different types of projects, different degrees of difficulty. This isn't anything particularly unique. I know a lot of people have sort of the same approach. So what I think actually was happening is that mentally, subconsciously perhaps, I knew I was kind of getting to that point of having too many works in progress, and I was beginning to feel overwhelmed by that. And so the overwhelm kind of translated into paralysis. And the reason I didn't know what direction to go in, I think, was because I knew deep down inside that what I should really do is address my works in progress and try to get a couple of wins and finish some things. So on Saturday morning, I was getting ready for Knit for Food, which was a fundraiser that was held on Saturday, April 5th. And collectively, everyone who participated in the event raised over well over $500,000. I think we were over $520,000 actually at the end of the weekend. So it was really great, really inspirational. But that morning, I actually didn't really know. I didn't have a plan for what I was going to work on. And at kind of the 11th hour, I decided that I was going to work on one of my works in progress and see how far I could get in that 12-hour time span of Knit for Food. So I pulled out my Traveler, which I cast on March 1st, and I did cast that on as part of the knit along that's happening right now. It's the Drea Renee Knits March to May knit along. And I did it last year as well, and I made a shawl. I made the melt shawl. And I really liked the experience of kind of having a low pressure motivation to check off a project in my queue in Ravelry for at least 7 or 8 months. So I've known for a long time that I wanted to make this. And unlike some projects, which kind of go into the queue and maybe float out of the queue and other shiny new things pop into it, this one has been a mainstay. It never left. I always knew that I was going to make it. I was just sort of waiting for the right time. And so when I went to Rhinebeck last year in October, which was my first time at Rhinebeck, I had my little list of projects that I was planning to do in the coming, 12 months or so. And the Traveler was on my list, and I was hoping to find the perfect yarn for the Traveler, and I did. So since October of last year, I've had the yarn, I've had the pattern, everything was sort of in the can. And then I cast on March 1st, and I worked through the body pretty quickly. I'll put some pictures up while I'm talking because I did take a lot of pictures of my progress and sort of contextual pictures as well of what I was doing while I was working on it, because I kind of did it in keeping with the name. So I traveled a lot with this project. I took it with me to a dance competition in St. Louis. I took it on vacation to Turks and Caicos. It came with me on another dance competition in Chicago, and yada, yada, yada. I picked it up over the weekend. I knit on it exclusively for 3 days. And at the end of that, I guess it was Tuesday night, I stayed up. It was Monday night of this week. I'm recording this on Wednesday. On Monday night, I only had a couple small pieces left to go, and I was determined to finish it, to get to the finish line and start blocking the sweatshirt or sweater or whatever you want to call it, so that I could show you in this podcast. And I was up until 2:30 in the morning, finishing it, getting it on the blocking mats so that it could start drying, because I know it always takes a couple of days for these types of things to dry, especially in the winter time when the house is all closed up. Or I guess it's spring, but the house is still all closed up because it was really cold yesterday. So anyway, the reason I'm not wearing anything knit today is because, surprise, surprise, I have a finished object and I wanted to show you, and it is the Traveler. And I'm going to spend, I think, I know I've already talked about it a little bit, but I'm going to spend the rest of this episode talking about the Traveler. But first, I'm going to put it on. Voila, through the magic of editing, I am wearing my Traveler. And I did do the hoodie version. So I have a hood. I actually haven't put the hood up yet. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay. Oh, I'm so happy about this. All right, so why did I want to make the Traveler, and why did it stick on my queue, unlike a lot of other projects, or a lot of other patterns, I should say. I think I was drawn to this pattern because it is very sporty, and it's kind of unusual. You know, most people, when they're knitting garments like this, it's a sweater, it's a blouse, it's a tank top, it's a tee. The sweatshirt format is usually, you know, seen in other media. So, you know, like a cotton fleece, or, you know, some sort of like performance fabric. I was really excited about the prospect of knitting a sweatshirt. I'm a pretty sporty person, and so this just really appealed to me. I liked how casual the silhouette is, and, you know, the drop shoulder construction. I liked also the simplicity of the design. You know, these are just like alternating sections of knits and purls. Okay, cinematic, you gotta focus for me. There you go. Focus. Okay, there you go. So it gives this look of like horizontal ribbing. And so something interesting that happens with the ribbing, I'll explain that before I kind of get into the details of my process and my materials and stuff. And those of you who have made this will totally understand and relate. When you knit this piece, it is like a shriveled up prune, basically. I can't think of any other better analogy. It's like dehydrated almost. So because of the nature of this ribbed fabric, the knit sections almost disappear, and all you see are these like purl ridges. And so when you're knitting it, you're using all this yarn, and I used over 1,500 yards of yarn for the size 2, which I think is actually quite a lot less than what the pattern says it will take. But anyway, that's sort of like another topic altogether. But the whole time you're making this, it's kind of terrifying because it looks like you're making like a doll-sized garment, and the pattern explains that, you know, there is like a percentage of change that will happen between when you're knitting it and when you block it. And so I knew that, and I really tried to have faith, but it's really hard when you're seeing it and you're trying it on and you're like, this isn't even close to like what I would wear. And it's hard to imagine because you've made other sweaters, and, you know, like, you know, I've made sweaters with superwash wool, with alpaca. I've seen how much those can grow with blocking, but I've never seen anything like this, where it just looks like it. It really looks scary. Like there's no way it's going to fit you. So I will just back up and talk about how I approached this. I did swatch, and I made probably like a mini size swatch, I would say. I would say it was about half the size of what it should have been. And if I find a picture, I think I took a picture of it, I'll put it on the screen. I was finding that I was a half of a stitch off per 4 inches, which doesn't seem like that much, but for an oversized pullover, I figured it could add up, but that kind of put me, I was kind of on the fence to make a size 2 or a size 3. And because I thought my gauge was slightly looser by half a stitch per every 4 inches, that it would be better to make the size 2 and have maybe a little bit more ease, so that maybe it would give me a little bit somewhere between the size 2 and the size 3, maybe a little closer to the size 2. So I actually found that block any differently than a regular size 2. So it might have just been because of the size of my swatch, or, you know, some other factor. As you can imagine, 0.5 stitches isn't that much. And I did try to manipulate my swatch, and I didn't want to like stretch it too much. I tried to treat it as I would treat the garment when I was blocking it. And it just sort of, you know, it turned out basically like a size 2. Let's go back and talk about the yarn, because I feel like I'm just starting to ramble now. I've never talked about one piece for an entire episode, so I didn't really like have a structure in mind for this. But I do know that I thought that this warranted its own dedicated episode. So hopefully you don't mind. So I talked about the size that I made, and I want to show you the yarn because I spent a lot of time looking, and then I got to Rhinebeck and hoped that maybe I would find the perfect yarn there. I was really looking for a yarn that was either a tonal or a variegated yarn that was subtle in its variegation, so that it would kind of accentuate the horizontal ribbing or the horizontal almost striping of this piece, and the texture of it. So that's kind of what I had in mind going in, and I pretty quickly found in the right quantity, which was not an easy feat. I think I had on my list that I needed to buy 1,900 yards of this yarn, so it's quite a bit of yarn. This is my extra skein since I didn't use all the yarn, and in fact I have this full unused hank plus a most of a cake that I didn't use. I'm trying to bring everything into focus here. Hopefully you can see that okay. So it's this beautiful jade green, maybe aqua. I sort of see it as like a combination of mint and pistachio green, with some gray variegation in it. So I liked how it felt casual, and it's, as you can probably see, it's like the same color as my glasses. So obviously it's a color that I really love and I love to wear. So it seemed like kind of a no-brainer. But the other thing that's really cool about this yarn, aside from the color, is the fiber composition is really unique. It is 70, this is a hand-dyed yarn, by the way. It is 70% superwash merino, 20% cashmere, and 10% nylon. And this is a sport weight yarn. The maker is called Dragonfly Fibers in Canon hand dyes. And this particular base is called Bugga Sport. The colorway is Titania. And I just fell in love with it. And I bought a lot of it. And I've got a lot of extra, so I'm definitely going to be making something else. I have like, I think over 600 yards left, which is pretty cool. So I mentioned that I cast on in March, and the body of this really went fast for me. I was surprised how invested I became in this project, that I just really wanted to work on this, not exclusively, but a lot. And I found it very comforting project. I think when I was on vacation, I called it my emotional support project, because I knew that if one of my other projects was kind of going awry and needed to visit time out for a little while, that this was like my ride or die. This was going to be always there for me. Like, you know, really didn't require a whole lot of thought. and it was knit from the bottom up. So I know that can be a little scary for people. So the start of it is that sort of like mindless, going around and around, no shaping, no increases or decreases, just like repeating the same stitch pattern over and over again. And then you get to the place where you're going to split front and back. And there's a little bit of a brain scratch that happens because while you had this stitch pattern in the round, which is very sensical, it's like, you do all your knits and then you do your purls. I'm not going to give all the particulars of the pattern because I don't want to, because you should buy the pattern if you want to make it and know the particulars. But anyway, when you start working flat, the order of the knit and purl rows gets all like jumbled up. And so it's just sort of like a little bit of a mind shift that you have to make. Even though you can readily see the pattern developing in your hands, it's still required a little bit of thought, at least initially, to kind of adjust your thinking rather than just being like, here are the knits, here are the purls. Your order is a little bit weird because you're knitting on the right side and then the wrong side. So I continued to like breeze through this, the front and the back, the short rows were fine. And, through the whole body, even working flat, it was really like smooth sailing. I was really into it. But again, I kept looking at it and being like, this is so small. It's so small. And then when I did join the shoulders, which I really like the detail here at the shoulder, if you can see it, it's really pretty. It's a 3 needle bind off. When I got it together, I tried it on, and I think this was in Turks and Caicos. I tried it on in the bathroom there, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so small. But you have that voice in the back of your head saying, don't worry, have faith, it's going to block out. They told you it was going to be like this. Don't panic. So I tried not to panic and I continued. One thing I will say, modification on the body that I made is that I made the body an inch longer than what the pattern calls for. I know that the designer, Andrea Mowry, Andrea Renee Knits, has a famously short torso. And so a lot of her cropped garments are particularly cropped. And I knew that I wanted a cropped look, but I didn't also want like my stomach hanging out necessarily. So what I did is I figured if I added an inch, about an inch, I made sure that it worked for the stitch pattern. I thought that would be enough, but then, you try it on and you're like, oh my gosh, it wasn't enough. But anyway, I continued. And I think the last day that I was on vacation, I was starting to work on the sleeves. And I just have a thing with sleeves. And again, I know this isn't anything unusual because a lot of people start to, lose interest a little bit on the sleeves. But on this one in particular, it just, I felt like I was knitting and knitting and knitting and not getting anywhere because again, as you knit this fabric, it just starts to like cinch in on itself. And, in this case, kind of vertically, I guess, it's cinching in on itself because of the horizontal ribbing. And so I felt like, oh my gosh, this is just going to take forever. But I pushed through the first sleeve and I was happy with the way it looked, but I just couldn't bring myself to tackle the second sleeve. And so I just put it away for, I don't know, about 2 weeks, I guess, and worked on other things. And on Saturday morning, Knit for Food, I just decided I'm gonna do it. So I had a little bit of the sleeve done, starting Knit for Food. I'll put a picture up to show where I started. I put a little progress keeper on it so you could see, so that I could see how far I was able to progress in that 12-hour knit-a-thon. And so on Sunday, we had a rainy day here and my son's soccer game was canceled. So I figured maybe I would just do my own knit-a-thon at home and keep working on this. So I started the hood, and the hood is like a project in and of itself. I mean, there's a lot of fabric here, and when you hold it up, when you hold this whole piece up, the body, the hood is like almost as tall as the body because it's a cropped silhouette, and it's shaped using short rows. Oh, I kind of look like, Knights of the Round Table. But anyway, it's interesting. I watched Amy of Knee Knits, her podcast, where she was also knitting the Traveler around the same time that I started. I think she started hers before I did. But when she finished her hood, she held it up and said it looked just like a short row heel on a sock. And I've never knit a short row heel on a sock, but I can imagine that this is exactly how it is made. There's like two different phases of short rows. First, shape the hood and then widen the hood so that it can frame around your face. And so yeah, the hood took almost 2 full days of pretty heavy knitting and focus knitting because you're counting the short rows. And and I'm one of those people who has my pattern printed out and I'm like making a tally for every single row just to make sure that I have not lost my place or miscounted, because if I don't do that, my mind tends to wander and I can easily get messed up, and then it can just be really hard to figure out where you are when you're in a short row part of the pattern. So anyway, that's just me. So I finished the hood on Monday evening, and I figured, all I have to do is the encasement for the drawstring and make the drawstring. I had bought a cordsmith to make this drawstring. It's almost a 4 foot long I-cord that you have to make for this drawstring. I know it doesn't seem like it would be 4 feet long, but it's almost 4 feet. So I started watching tutorials on the cordsmith and my brain was just not there for it. It was starting to get late and I just could not focus. I actually had done the encasement first. You're supposed to do the drawstring like before you even start the hood, but I figured this would be like a quick and easy thing to do right at the end. And unfortunately, because I did not have like the brain power, the patience to learn how to use the cordsmith tool, I just proceeded with knitting the I-cord. So it's like 3 stitches, move it to the other end of the needle, 3 stitches, move it to the other end of the needle, over and over and over. And the final of the NCAA men's basketball tournament was going on. While I'm doing this, I'm literally like falling asleep periodically, just trying to push through it. I finally got it done, and then I had to sort of knit the encasement into place. So this is like a big, this was like a strip that was twice as long, and then it folds over, and then you knit it together onto the hood with the drawstring in place inside of it. And everything related to this drawstring and the encasement just took so much longer than I thought it would, but I had it in my mind that I was going to finish on Monday. And so I just continued to work on it until 2:30 in the morning when it was time to finally put it. Actually, I think by 2 I had it in the water soaking with the wool wash. And then I sort of got myself ready for bed while I was soaking the sweater or the sweatshirt. And, I laid it all out. And it was really interesting because when I was shaping it on the blocking mats, I was finding that it kind of naturally was going into, more or less, was naturally going into the dimensions in the schematic for the size 2. And that, and it looked visually like it looked pretty good. It definitely grew a ton, which again was what they said would happen. So that was a relief. But I made the decision when I was blocking it not to block it too aggressively and to just see how it came out in the size 2 dimensions. And so I patiently waited for the past 2 days while it dried. The hood took a little bit longer to dry than the rest of it. But I found a really clever way of accelerating that drying time. I found one of those, I don't know if you have those storage keepers that you can put in your fridge, and you can put produce inside, like berries or whatever, and there's a mesh basket that lets the moisture drain off of it. So I pulled the plastic mesh basket out of that storage container, and I sort of shaped the hood on top of it, and I'll put a picture so you have any idea what I'm talking about. But that really expedited the drying process. I wish there was a way I could do that for the entire thing, but I know it's pretty helpful for a sweater to lay flat and dry and just kind of get nice and even. So anyway, that was just sort of a fun little hack. And then when I tried it on for the first time, I felt that I really liked the fit, but I wish I had maybe even added a little bit more length on the body, maybe 1 more inch. It's fine. I'll show you in the pictures, you'll see it is totally fine. My belly is not hanging out. But yeah, I feel like maybe 1 more inch would have been ideal. And then the sleeves also, I did knit the sleeves about 1/2 inch more than what was called for. And I probably should have done maybe 1.5 inches instead of 1 inch. You can see, everyone has their preferences of where they want a sleeve to hit. I like mine longer. I would like mine to kind of almost go, onto my hand, for the most comfort and the most coziness. So I'm considering reblocking this because I think that if I use pins, I did not use pins. Again, I just laid it out because it seemed to kind of want to go into that size 2 measurement. If I try blocking it a little more aggressively, I think that I can get the length that I want out of the sleeves and the body as well. One thing I really like about the sleeves is how the cuff turned out. So I should mention the needle size that I used. I am a loose knitter, so it was very normal for me to use a smaller needle size than what is called for in a pattern. And in this case, my needle size for the body fabric was 3, US size 3, and the pattern called for a size 5. And as I mentioned, my gauge was even still a little bit looser than, by 1/2 stitch per 4 inches, so barely. And then for the ribbing, you're supposed to use 2 sizes down, and this is on a size 1 needle. And I'm really happy. Can you see that? Focus. Okay, so because I'm a loose knitter, I'm often really unhappy with the way my ribbing looks, because even when I use, a smaller needle size, I feel like a lot of times in blocking, the ribbing still gets blown out in a way that is like not so attractive. Because I like it to look neat and tidy and tight, and I feel like this time it actually worked perfectly well. And I like the fit of it. I like how wide the cuffs are. I just want to see if I can maybe get that little more length if I reblock this. But they're not way off. They're just like, it's like a personal preference. Another little personal preference thing that I did is I made my drawstring in a contrasting yarn. I was debating this up until the very end, which way to go. In the pattern, in the prototype that Andrea Mowry knit, she had a contrasting drawstring and I liked the way that looked. I didn't think I wanted like a bright color, but I liked the idea of, you maybe using some version of a color that is part of the variegated yarn. So I pulled this gray in, and let's see if you can see the I-cord, if I can get it to focus. Maybe. It's not focusing very well. Maybe a little bit. Anyway, it's just a simple I-cord. There's no rocket science involved here. But anyway, I am really excited about this finished object. It is right up my alley. I want to find more patterns like this that are like kind of in keeping with my personality and my lifestyle. I'm a person that wears athletic clothes a lot, and so, but I also like to wear my hand knits. So I think that it would be a good idea to incorporate more of that, and maybe even knit another version of this. If I were to knit another version, I could imagine maybe doing something in like a color shifting yarn or a gradient yarn, like a spin cycle, because that would be the correct weight for the yarn, the right gauge. The only thing that I have to keep in mind with that is, again, because you need to use so much yarn, that would be quite an expensive piece to use exclusively spin cycle yarns, because what you get for a skein is, I think it's about 200 yards. And if I need 1,500 yards of sport weight yarn, and each skein is $32 or $34, I can't remember what, but you can imagine the cost is going to add up there. So, but that's not really what this podcast is about. I know I don't do a very good job of like quantifying my my projects in terms of like, what did I spend, what needles did I use, what was my gauge. I tried to provide that when I think of it, but it's not really my focus here. So I am just absolutely excited to have finished this. I know I'm going to wear it a lot. I'm glad to have it checked off of my list. It feels like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Not to say that this project was a burden in any way, because it was absolutely, for the vast majority of the time while I was knitting it, it was just a pleasure to knit. So it kind of hit that sweet spot of being a nice process and a finished object that is amazing and has a lot of utility. I'm sure when I am done filming this, I'm going to think of all these things that I wanted to tell you about the Traveler. But I already told you a lot, and I've been talking for almost a half an hour. So hopefully that was the right amount. And, I just wanted to share this finished object because I was really excited about it, and I feel like it's okay now to start other projects because I finished this major one, and I also feel like I got a little more momentum on my works in progress, and that the next time I film next week, I could potentially have 2 more garment finished objects. I can't remember who said it, but I was watching a podcast once where the person said that, you know, when they work on multiple whips at any particular time, you know, so every once in a while there's a bumper crop. So sometimes you go for a while and it feels like you don't finish anything. And then all of a sudden, 1 week, you have like 3 FOs and you're like, how did that happen? Well, obviously it didn't just happen out of nowhere. You have been working on all of those kind of, you know, asynchronously and at different speeds, at different times. And then sometimes there's this confluence where all of them are done. And I have to say that feels pretty good. And so I do have some, I'm going to have some finished objects to share next week for sure. I have a couple finished objects that I haven't been able to share yet because they are test knits and those patterns have not yet been released. So the final images and sharing of those objects is still embargoed until such a time when the patterns are available. I don't know if those test knits are going to be published by next week. It's possible that one of them may be, but the other one I think is going to be at least another week before I'm able to share that. But definitely there'll be a couple of FOs that are not related to test knits that I will surprise you with. I'm pretty sure I know what they're going to be. And I'll share some of my works in progress as well. I just didn't want to muddy the waters of this episode. I thought it would be great to focus on this one piece that has just sort of captured my heart and my hands over the past several weeks. Before I forget, if you enjoyed this video and you want to keep watching, please, please, please subscribe to my channel and like this video because it really helps. You know, I am a new podcaster. This is my 9th episode and I'm still finding it kind of a big challenge to get traction and to be seen. And, you know, I'm not in this to become any sort of big influencer or like, you know, have this be like my job. I'm doing this really because I love talking about knitting and I love making new friends and being part of the online knitting community in general. So this is sort of my way of doing that and I hope you enjoy it. I thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And love to hear what you're working on, if you've ever made the Traveler, what your experience was like, if you're participating in the March to May knit along, what are you making? I have another Andrea Mowry pattern that might get finished during this window as well, so I won't spoil any surprises, but I hope to share more on that soon. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.